Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on a really critical mission. We're going to zero in on let's say, the key points of escalation, the trend shifts that are kind of hidden inside the latest NCRB data for India.
The 2023 numbers, yeah.
Exactly. We want to cut straight through and see, where the pressure on vulnerable groups, STs, SCs, women, children, where did it really ramp up last year?
And, well, if you're asking where things are moving fastest, you absolutely have to look at scheduled tribes, the STs.
Okay.
This isn't just like a small increase. It's an acceleration, something you rarely see this dramatically in this data. It really changes the national picture.
How dramatic are we talking?
Registered cases against STs shot up by, get this, 28.8% year over year.
Wow, nearly 30%.
Yeah. Hitting 12,960 cases.
Yeah.
And the crime rate per lakh, that jumped from 9.6 up to 12.4.
Okay, wait, 28.8%.
Yeah.
That velocity, as you put it, is huge. But there's one number buried in there from the source material that's just, it's shocking.
You mean Manipur?
Manipur, exactly. We have to talk about it because that regional spike, it feels like it almost invalidates any long-term trend analysis for STs, doesn't it?
It absolutely complicates it, yeah. You see states like Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, they traditionally have the highest volume, right? MP had 2,858 cases, Rajasthan 2,453.
Right, the usual suspects, so to speak.
But Manipur just blows that whole model up. In 2022, Manipur registered just one single case against STs.
One case?
One. In 2023, with all the internal conflict happening there, that number exploded. 3,399 cases.
Good grief.
It makes it the single worst affected state by sheer volume, just like that.
It's an almost unbelievable jump. One case to nearly 3,400.
Yeah.
What kind of violence are we talking about? What drove that specific spike in Manipur?
Well, it speaks directly to the conflict, doesn't it? To property, to territory control. The breakdown tells the story.
Okay.
You've got 1,051 cases of arson, so deliberate destruction of property. Then 260 cases of dacoity, which is armed robbery. And, significantly, 193 cases specifically registered as occupy or dispose of land belonging to STs. This looks like active targeting tied to displacement.
That paints a very specific, very grim picture of conflict. But that said, if we sort of pull back the lens from Manipur, from that conflict anomaly,
right,
and look at the national picture for STs, the most common crime actually tells a different story, maybe one of more pervasive daily tension.
Exactly. Outside those really intense conflict zones, the most frequent crime against STs nationally, making up 21.3% of cases, was simple hurt. Simple
hurt, often a marker of just low-level community friction.
Precisely. Followed by riots at 13.2%. So it's that contrast that's the key insight here.
So extreme, conflict-driven violence in one state.
Versus this widespread, almost endemic community tension showing up as minor assaults across the country.
Okay. Given that really shocking acceleration for STs, how does that compare to, say, the data for scheduled castes, the SCs? They're traditionally the largest vulnerable group tracked.
Right. Well, the contrast is stark there, too. Crime against SCs was comparatively static, almost flat.
Really?
Only a marginal, 0.4% increase. It basically stabilized around 57,789 cases. Very different picture.
Huh. Okay. What about crime against women?
Also a slight increase, but nothing like the ST figures, up 0.7%, reaching over 4.48 lakh cases in total.
And the types of crimes.
Yeah.
Still depressingly familiar.
Tragically predictable, yes. Nearly 30%, 29.8 to be exact, were registered under cruelty by husband or relatives.
Right.
And the next biggest chunk, almost 20%, 19.8, was kidnapping and abduction of women.
Okay, so SE's relatively stable, women a slight increase. But you mentioned another major crisis point in the data earlier.
Yes, and this is the other big jump you need to watch. Crimes against children.
How significant was that?
It saw a much more significant acceleration, a 9.2% increase. That brings the total to 1,077,335 cases.
Nearly 10% increase? Wow. What's driving that?
That's a substantial jump, yeah. And the drivers are pretty concentrated. Kidnapping and abduction of children made up 45% of all those cases?
Almost half.
Almost half, followed closely by cases under the POCSO Act, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act. That accounted for 38.2%.
So abduction and sexual offenses are really dominating the crimes against minors.
They absolutely are. That's the landscape.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly just for a moment. How is the justice system responding? Any quick indicators on enforcement?
Well, the data does give us some stats on that. Despite these huge case numbers, charge sheeting rates under IPC crimes were quite high in some major cities. Kochi led the way among the 19 metros at 97.2%.
That's very high.
Yeah, followed by Kolkata at 94.7% and Pune at 94%. So high rates in some urban centers at least.
And how does that connect back, if at all, to the youth data? You mentioned juveniles earlier.
Right, we can tie that together. We saw about a 2.7% increase in cases registered against juveniles overall, reaching 31,365 cases. But the really key finding here, I think, especially for thinking about prevention, is the age breakdown. 79%, nearly 4/5 of the juveniles apprehended were in that very specific 16 to 18 age group.
16 to 18, that concentration does speak volumes, doesn't it, about maybe where interventions need to be targeted.
Absolutely.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening?
Well, the 2023 NCRB data really paints a picture of highly uneven social pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You have STs dealing with these historic conflict spikes, like in Manipur, alongside maybe more simmering national tensions. And then children facing this quiet but accelerating crisis, largely driven by abduction and POCSO offenses.
Right. And maybe here's a final thought, something to mull over.
Yeah.
If the majority of crime against STs nationally is actually simple, hurt that sign of community friction.
Right.
And almost 80% of apprehended juveniles are packed into that volatile 16 to 18 age bracket.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell us?
What specific preventative programs do we actually need? Exactly. What's needed to address both that community conflict and the tensions right at that critical demographic intersection? That concentration of young adults, it really demands some highly targeted thinking about social intervention, doesn't it?